for the senseless tragedy that happened on Saturday night. So if we could all just take a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm going to call a special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Monday, September 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, which has been duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A. The prayer will be offered by Alderman O'Brien, and Alderman Clemens will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with the spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and the greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Thank you.
Have Alderman on Zoom? Oh, Alderman Senate. Okay.
Alderman O'Brien is present. Alderwoman Timmons is absent. Alderman Moran, absent. Alderman Thibault,
No,
absent.
that's Alderman Thibodeau.
Thibodeau, thank you. Alderman Gouveia.
Here.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Senate.
I am here. I'm participating remotely tonight as I shake off what I hope to be the last of an illness. I am alone in the room and I'm able to hear everybody in the chamber.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Thibault, absent. Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
And Alderman Wilshire.
I'm here.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 present.
10 present.
10 and 1 Zoom.
10.
Yeah, one. Yeah, yes.
Oh, and 1 on Zoom. Thank
Yeah.
you. You're right. Okay, so tonight we have a public hearing, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to the Chair of the Budget Review Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, tonight we have a public hearing on R-25-205 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $25,000 of unanticipated revenue into Fund 4615 Housing Revolving Fund. Anyone here to give us an overview? Director Sullivan.
Good evening, Alderman Dowd, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, members of the board, rather. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director, here on behalf of R-25-205. Before I get into the specific contents of this legislation, I wanted to just give a brief reminder of why we're here. If folks aren't familiar, the Clock Tower project, when it was initially done back in the 80s, actually took on debt that it owed to the city of Nashua from a housing development grant. This is a large project combined with HUD funding, city resources, and so the city actually holds a position when it comes to ongoing debt with the Clock Tower development. Back in March and April of 2025, you actually heard a piece of legislation, R-25-138, that allowed the city or authorized the city to allow Clock Tower to subordinate the city in a refinancing that was underway of debt that existed. And so you agreed to that. There were some conditions of that subordination. There were some questions. I think there was one question of Attorney Bolton that evening, but in the end, it was favorably voted on. In subsequent conversation about that refinancing, and specifically a payment that's to be made of $25,000 to the city, sort of an administration fee, if you will, a convenience fee, there was actually, I missed an opportunity, and that opportunity was that $25,000 was slated to go directly to the general fund, miscellaneous revenue essentially. But because of the city resources that went into the project and Clock Tower's ongoing commitment to affordable housing, and the very reason that we're receiving the payment being affordable housing, I consulted with other city folks, and we decided that perhaps a good use of this money would be to put it in the housing revolving fund, where it can then be deployed for future housing creation or affordable housing creation. And so this piece of legislation before you this evening, R25205, all it does is it takes that $25,000 and rather than putting it into miscellaneous revenue, it puts it into the housing revolving fund so that it can then be recommended by the Housing Revolving Committee to the mayor as the agent to expend into affordable housing projects. And at the risk of sort of undercutting a piece of legislation that you'll hear later this evening, that money is going directly towards loans or grants creating affordable housing, as the Maynard Homes project is likely to receive a $1.5 million award out of the Housing Revolving Fund. So again, no better place to put this money. Every little dollar counts. We've done some small grants out of that fund as well that I'm sure Alderwoman Kelly can speak to, and Alderman Wilshire too. But we're really excited to get every penny that we possibly can into that, because we don't at this point in time have a recurring funding source for the fund. So again, every $25,000 helps, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity to route these monies to that account. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. Questions? Alderman Lopez?
Director Sullivan, can you give a definition of affordable housing as you were using it in your comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may
Yes,
address
go
the
ahead.
question. Absolutely, Alderman Lopez. I'm going to provide sort of the classic lowercase a, uppercase A affordable housing answer to you, but truly I think that applies here. Typically, when we're talking about affordable housing from a sort of a statutory definition, we're talking about those making 80% of their area median income, less than or equal to 80% of the area median income. But when I refer to the Housing Revolving Fund Committee, they've actually put together a scoring rubric that prioritizes projects that create deeper affordability, those that propose individuals being housed that are making 60% of area median income, 50% of area median income, or 30% of area median income. So while the statutory definition says 80%, Alderman Lopez, I think we all recognize, I know you certainly do, that the housing we're trying to create with that revolving fund money is really from 80% all the way down, and that every piece of the income band needs to be covered. So it's really anything below 80%. And I'd even offer tonight, and I'm not suggesting this is what the Housing Revolving Fund Committee is working on, but even in Nashua right now, 100% of area median income and 120% is still a challenge, but that's not the Housing Revolving Fund's mission. Hopefully that answered your question, and I'm happy to follow up if it didn't.
I'm going to think about that last part, but thank you.
Yep.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you. There was some questioning around the name change for the Housing Revolving Fund. Can you just speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple name changes that have been discussed. One that was formally done in front of the board, that's when the Housing Trust Fund Committee was renamed to Housing Revolving Fund. That was the formal change that happened. That happened because there was a contemplation that the fund would make loans to projects, and when it was the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, a trust fund under New Hampshire state law cannot be the source of a loan, essentially. So that was the pivot that happened about 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, I should say. But when the fund was being recreated in its initial form back in 2021, 2020, there was initially discussion of the fund being called the Affordable Housing Revolving Fund, or Affordable Housing Trust Fund, rather. And I can't speak to all the details of that discussion because I wasn't a part of it, but I think there was some recognition that it was possible that the fund could be used for other purposes other than sort of that capital A affordable. And so I believe that the name affordable or the affordable title was taken out, recognizing that it didn't want to be inappropriately tied to a statutory definition that might not fit within the city of Nashua. But again, I wasn't there for all those conversations, Alderwoman Kelly, but that's my understanding.
If I could follow
All
up.
set? Follow up?
Since you're here, to date, What are the projects that have been funded? I mean, I know this answer, but I know you'll do a better job than I will.
Nope, yep, well, I always love a good quiz. So there are four projects that have received recommendations from the Housing Revolving Fund. One is a grant to Southern New Hampshire Medical Center for them to explore a workforce housing concept at their site right downtown here. They're looking at creating multifamily housing for doctors, nurses, other employees of the hospital. They're sort of in the pre-development phase of that. The fund awarded $350,000 to the Front Door Agency for a landlord incentive program that's going on right now, getting those holding vouchers into housing more effectively with security deposit, rent deposit, and a direct payment and damage recovery to the landlord. And then two development projects that have been recommended by the committee, but there aren't formal loan terms necessarily in place. One is to the Maynard Homes redevelopment with the Nashua Housing Redevelopment. I know Tom Authority and Tom Monahan's here this evening, as others might be on Zoom. That's in the amount of $1.5 million. And another conditional award has been made to the 103 Temple Street project, which is a project of about 360 units over on Temple Street that's in the process of being awarded or permitted right now. Those are the four awards that have been conditionally recommended.
And if I could follow up,
Follow up?
2 of those were loans, correct? And then 2 were.
That is correct, yes.
And if I could just,
One more?
I'm not going to actually ask you another question. I'm just going to finish. I thank you for the clarification. I know that the rubric that was put together, and I'm happy to share it with the board if you don't have it, specifically make sure that we are putting into affordables. And by putting that scoring rubric together, we were allowed to really look at projects and give ones that we really wanted in our city, a bigger, piece in terms of the scoring. So we really spent, it was almost a year, maybe?
Yeah.
On that rubric and having it be able to, set forth what we wanted to do with the money. So the revolving part of it was in that discussion, if there are parties like developers who could pay back the money, that would allow us to keep the fund going instead of just once the 10 million is gone, it's gone. So that's why it changed, because we, as a committee, we look at it and we give grants to nonprofits for those types of things. But if there are opportunities where we can get the money back in and keep deploying it, that was the thinking. So, thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Director
Thank you.
Sullivan. I'll now open it up for testimony in favor of R-25-205. Seeing none, I'll now open it up to testimony in opposition of R-25-205. Again, seeing none. Once again, I will open it up for testimony in favor of R-25-205. Seeing none. Once again, testimony in opposition of R-25-205. Again, seeing none. I'll now close the public hearing on Resolution R-25-205 at 7:12 PM. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion that the September 22nd, 2025 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
Would you please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Cabea?
Yes.
Alderman Lopez?
No.
Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yes.
Alderman Senate?
Yes.
Alderman Jettie?
Yes.
Alderman Clee?
Yes.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire?
Yes.
You have 11 yeas, 0 nays.
I declare the meeting adjourned at 7:13 PM.
I definitely made. I was very clearly.
2 minutes.
Give me 2 minutes.
Gave you 2 minutes.
Wait for him to come back. I'd like to call the Budget Review Committee to order at September 22nd, 2025. Meeting's being held in the automatic chamber and it's been noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with requirements of RSA 91-8:22. 7:16 PM. We'll let the meeting start by taking a roll call. If you're participating by Zoom, please state your presence, reason for not attending in person, and whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Senate.
I am here, still participating via Zoom due to illness. I am still alone in the room, and I can still hear everybody.
Alderman Theobald is absent. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderwomen at large. Kelly.
I'm here.
Okay. Alderman at large Wilshire.
I'm here.
Alderman at large Michael O'Brien is here. And our chairman, Richard A. Dow.
Present.
Okay. And we also have Alderman Clay. And, yes, Alderman Clements. Thank you.
So I see Director Cummings on Zoom. Director Sullivan is here. I don't see Don. Oh,
He's here.
just snuck in.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
We also missed Alderman Jettie.
And Jettie.
And Jettie, Alderman Jettie, yes, thank you.
All right. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to comment on anything on tonight's agenda? Please come up to the microphone, name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Alderwomen, Aldermen. My name is Joseph Olaforovich, 35 Newbury Street in Nashua. I'm on the Keefe Auditorium Commission and am speaking tonight in favor of the passage of R-25-206. When you form the Keefe Commission to study the Keefe and to make recommendations to the city about the preservation of the building, one of the things that's integral to our work, even though the commission itself has people that are artistically excellent, that are technically excellent, and physical plant knowledgeable about the building, one of the things that we cannot do is we can actually not come up with a proper scope of variations of what can be done with the building and what those costs are. So we strongly recommend that you move forward with this reallocation of funds so that an architectural study can be done with 3 different variations, one being just preserve the building literally as it is without any changes of the actual key footprint, another one being a kind of medium scope project with some expansion, as one may have seen a little bit in the Penrose proposal, and another one which is far more expansive, which would make it really into a major performing arts center that could also possibly do things like Broadway tours and that kind of accommodation. So you have those kind of levels. You have to dream big at this point. So it's something that right now is we do not have that kind of funding to get that kind of scope and that kind of recommendation of monies to you. We keep hearing this $30 million number. This $30 million number is just a guesstimate that's just been kind of put around the city, and it might be way above that, it might be way below that. So until we actually have studies that are done that are proper, that work with the commission for us to be able to make our recommendation, our hands are tied. So I don't need to speak any further about that this evening other than saying strongly recommend to move forward with those reallocation of funds of $75,000 and hope that the Budget Committee would make that recommendation with that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one, communications?
We have one from Mr. Sam Durfee, AICP Planning Manager. Reason, referral to the Board of Aldermen and Resolution R-25-197, authorizing developer agreements with payment in lieu of taxes, pilot, for the Phase 1 of the Maynard Homes redevelopment.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication, place it on file. Without objection, I'll accept the communication was received after the agenda was prepared.
Communication from Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services, and Lisa Foto, Director of Public Works. Regards, communications requesting tabling of R-25-151.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication, place it on file. Unfinished business.
Tonight, we have R-25-151, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $5,500,000 for the Public Works Division garage. And that's the one where, are we discussing that tonight?
Make a motion.
Yeah. I'm gonna, yes. I'm gonna make the motion to table R-25-151 by request, and I'll call the roll call.
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Senate,
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman at-large Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman at-large O'Brien, yes. Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6 yeas.
Yes, R-25-151 is now tabled. New business resolutions, R-25-197.
Yes, R-25-197, authorizing the developer agreements with payment in lieu of taxes pilot for Phase 1 of the Maynard Homes redevelopment. I would like to make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend to the full board final passage of R-25-197. Discussion? I think Director Sullivan would like to speak.
Please.
The Lesser Sullivan goes first.
No, stop.
When I heard Sully earlier, and my head popped up, and I just was triggered. I thought my dad was here randomly. Anyway, good evening. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director, here on behalf of R-25-197 relative to the Maynard Homes Development Agreement and Payment in lieu of Taxes Agreement. Before I get into just some of the brief overview of the legislation, I wanted to acknowledge, I think, Lynn Lombardi, Executive Director of the Housing Authority, Rich Mazzocchi of Tremont Development Partners, and Tom Monahan, longtime board member and board president, are all here this evening. And then quickly, I want to acknowledge Celia Leonard, Tim Cummings, Bill McKinney, Dan Hudson, Sam Durfee for their efforts getting this project development agreement together. There are a lot of moving pieces to these, and negotiations are challenging, as Tom knows and others know on the call, but we're finally here to present this to you. If you're not familiar with this project, Maynard Homes is the housing authority property off of Brook Street in Nashua, adjacent to Ingalls, currently houses several residents there. There's 2 phases to the project, and before you this evening is phase 1 only. Phase 1 is the demolition of 70 units that are currently on the site and replacement with 179. This is where things get a little bit complicated, and that is that in the proposed redevelopment, the project will actually be broken up into 2 tax credit entities, and that is important because you see 2 different development agreements in your packet this evening. This project is using what are known as 4% tax credits and 9% tax credits, and because of the complexities of those, the project actually sort of gets condoized and broken up into separate projects. And so ultimately, the 4% project and the 9% project exist as different development agreements. But before I go into those details and why they matter, I want to just note that this project is already approved by the Planning Board, Phase 1, and also you saw in your packet that the Planning Board has recommended the passage of this development agreement to you. Before I get into those details, obviously these development agreements with the Housing Redevelopment Authority are simply a reflection of the fact that the community has put tremendous trust and faith in the housing redevelopment to do exactly what its mission is, and that is provide affordable housing within the city of Nashua. And that's the very reason why you see this development agreement as a public-private partnership before you this evening to be considered. It includes several things that the Housing Authority is going to do and Tremont Development are going to do, but it also includes some things that the city is going to do in order to make this project happen, because these affordable housing projects, particularly of this nature, when it comes to redevelopment, are very complicated and challenging, particularly when it comes to getting the capital stack together to actually support them happening. And so you don't see a lot of housing authority entities in the state of New Hampshire doing this kind of work because they're very challenging. But again, that's why this development agreement exists. It's intended to bring the project forward, and thus there are several things proposed within it. And so I just wanted to quickly cover what those are. The first is a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, a pilot agreement. That will exist in this project between tax years 2029, or rather 2030 and 2041. From 2026 until 2029/2030, when the actual tax payments begin, and during construction, both the 4% and the 9% projects will pay annual tax bill of $0. So during the construction process, while this work is underway, these projects will pay $0 in taxes. Beginning in 2029, which is really tax year 2030, the 4% part of the project will pay $139,650, and the 9% part of the project will pay $48,300. Those will both escalate at a compound rate at a 3% increase per year out for the remainder of the agreement, which is really about a 12-year period that this is going to be in place. So that's critical here, this payment in lieu of taxes agreement that, again, I think is a reflection of the fact that it's recognized these affordable housing projects are challenging, and therefore the tax burden is modified. Additionally included here are upfront costs, including waivers of fees not to exceed a total amount of $425,000, and that's really for 3 separate fees: sewer or wastewater fees, building permit fees, and also school impact fees. I also want to point out for the record that although the building permit fees are being waived here, the Housing Redevelopment Authority in Tremont are actually paying for a third-party review, which is assisting our building department in conducting a timely and efficient manner of the building permit plan so that they can get started as soon as possible. So again, very much a partnership. The developer and the Housing Authority have agreed to build a trailhead off of Ingle Street, something that the Conservation Commission has been looking for many years, adjacent to the Joyce Park Wildlife Sanctuary, where they've made several improvements over recent years. You may remember there was a Boy Scout project 3 or 4 years ago out there to improve those trails, and really excited to be able to provide some true parking so that area will get used really as it should be. And I think the Conservation Commission is fully supportive of that. Additionally, the Housing Authority will maintain the bus shelter that's currently located on Burke Street, which bus shelter maintenance is always an issue for us. Bus shelters are great when they can actually be used, but sometimes when snow happens, we struggle to get out there in an efficient manner with a very small but dedicated team on the NTS side. And so the commitment to do this is really an operational easing for us, and we're very appreciative of that. Additionally, there will be a public stormwater system that will be privately maintained, or there'll be an easement in favor of the city for stormwater infrastructure that runs to the site, so that will remain into the future. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is just something relative particularly to the Committee on Infrastructure meeting this Wednesday. There's currently a network of public streets that flow throughout this site. Those streets are proposed to be discontinued. The project streets will become private. Certainly an argument could be made that that would lessen the impact on city services. I think that argument would be valid. But also there will be road improvements that come as a part of this redevelopment. I just wanted to note that in light of the planned discontinuance discussion on Wednesday evening. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the project that the committee may have. Thank you.
Questions? Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. The first question I have to the contract itself is I wanted to make sure that I understood what the vote was tonight, because looking at the legislation, it talks about the impact fees of $425,000, but then you also mentioned the property tax sections of the contract. Are we approving this entire contract or just the impact fees?
Yes, Director Sullivan?
You're approving both the development agreement, the contract, and the payment in lieu of tax arrangement that's included therein. The only reason that part is pulled out, the payment in lieu of taxes, Alderman Sullivan, is because it's recognized, I think, in my opinion at least, to be a more substantive component of the development agreement, and it's a specific statutory relief that you're granting there. So, but it's the full development agreement that's before you this evening.
Okay.
Or development agreements, I should say,
And
the two.
the final approval, of course, would be the full board, not
Yes.
just the, go ahead, follow up.
Thank you. So this agreement goes, it looks like they start pay, this starts to pay taxes in 2030 to 2041. Should I assume at that point that in 2042, then whatever it's assessed at, that's what they pay in property taxes? There's no more pilot agreement, there's no more nothing at this point?
Correct.
Yeah. One follow-up.
Sure, go ahead.
It says that you can, the agreement, if I read it correctly, not a lawyer, but if I read it correctly,
the agreement can be terminated if 133 apartments aren't low income. Who monitors that? Who is the check step, if you will, to make sure that those 133 units are going to worthy individuals?
Great question. You are, Alderman. No, I'm just kidding, Alderman Sullivan. No, in all seriousness, this is an excellent question. And Alderman Sullivan, that's one of the great things about projects like this. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, who do this stuff every day, they're also a party to this project. And they do a level of monitoring associated with their encumbrances on the property, which are nearly identical to ours. So I'll admit, we rely very heavily on their certification of the project on a regular basis because they themselves are a party to this. But when it comes to the city side, we are not going to be checking on this on an annual basis, but we will require some level of verification, but we're not going to be requiring income slips of every individual. They're going to be certifying to us that they're following this, and we have the opportunity, of course, to review that certification if we'd like to. But we don't have the capacity as a city to do certification of every single unit. We really rely on other agencies that are in these projects financially to take on a good portion of that administrative burden.
Follow up?
Thank you. So to paraphrase, you're leading with trust. You're basically putting your trust into the NHRA to say you're going to rent these 133 units to these worthy individuals. We got you.
We're putting our trust in the NHRA. We're also putting our trust in the other funders of the project that have similar conditions on the loan awards that they've made.
Yep.
All of those things together, first, it absolutely is based on trust, but all of those things together make me feel very comfortable that the intent of this will be, or not the intent, the language of this will be honored. So yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And just a comment?
Comment?
Thank you. I just reading through the contract, it reminded me, I know this was, I watched as this went through, but I was reminded about, you're basically doubling, almost tripling the size of units in that area. And, you know, the one thing they say about land is they're not making any more of it. So, you know, you really are taking that plot of land, you're rethinking it, and really maximizing the density on that to really, and I love the fact that they're putting in a PAL room or something in there, and then you mentioned the trailhead. I mean, this is great. I can't wait to see, when does it start? When does it finish?
Ideally, I think it starts as soon as possible, and I think in alignment with the schedule that's laid out here, I think their plan is to have this open within the next 3 years, certainly. Certainly, folks on Zoom can correct me, but that is the intent. These projects do take time. You know, I want to know when phase 2 is happening, but no, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, these projects do take time, but we try to satisfy as many community values as possible in a project like this, and that's why I mentioned the city staff earlier. We all sort of have our angle or our interest in this, but we try to check as many of those community value boxes as possible. We can't always get all of them, and the negotiations are hard. They're not always fun, but I think we have a really good project here, and one that's dense, not too dense. It's sort of like the porridge is just right, and I think that's what makes this project so great.
Great.
All set? Questions? Alderman Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is in regards to the folks who live there now. Are we doing something similar like we did with the Bronstein apartments where no one will be displaced until they find another unit for them?
Alderman Sullivan, Director Sullivan?
Mr. Chair, if I may see if Lynn is on, if she might be able to respond to that question. I have a fairly good sense of what the answer is, but I can't see who is on Zoom right now, and if Lynn is not on.
She is on.
Ms. Lombardi's on.
And she's off mute, so go ahead.
Okay. Lynn, could I pass it to you to provide some clarification on that?
Certainly, Matt. Thank you. I'm happy to answer that question. Right now, the Nashua Housing and Redevelopment Authority, along with Tremont Development Partners, We've hired a consultant, Housing to Home. It is the same consultant that we hired for the Bronstein redevelopment. They are currently working with our families. We have issued what's called tenant protection vouchers to allow them to identify and secure housing. And then we also, over the past 9 months, we held some of our public housing units for lateral transfers. So this project won't take the next step until all families have been relocated. And again, we're working hand in hand with them to assist them with locating housing. We are paying for their moves. We are reimbursing them for any security deposits and also application fees for housing. I mean, as the Board of Aldermen knows, we are certainly challenged with the level of rents that are out there, but we've created some great partnerships with some local landlords, and things are moving quite well. We've already moved 20 families. We have 8 more families scheduled to move this week. So it's going very well, and the families are being supported every step of the way.
Follow up, Alderman Clemmons?
Yes, and thank you for that. Sounds like you're doing excellent work. My only other question is, will those folks get the opportunity to come back in the new development if they so choose?
They will, Alderman Clemmons, they will have the right to return, and they will be the first families to move back.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your work.
All set.
Yes.
Alderman Senate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Sullivan, I apologize. I have to put you on the spot with an infrastructure question, and I know we're dealing with the funding here, but you called it out. So the stormwater easement that allows the city to perform repairs, restoration, and maintenance while still maintaining responsibility with the owner for operations of the private system. Do you know if there's any plans, whether on behalf of the owner or the city, to address that as the project goes forward? Because I know that the stormwater and the drainage and the runoff over there is a significant area of concern for not only the folks living at Maynard right now, but the neighbors as well.
Yeah,
Director Sullivan?
Yes, Alderman Senate, I should have been more clear about the stormwater system when I spoke about it earlier, because I knew I had an expert in you on there to ask me about it. But we're actually in an arrangement here where, while the city will have rights relative to the stormwater system, it will be, and the text of the development agreement on page 6 actually speaks to this, that will be allowed as a public entity, the city, to convey public drainage through a private system. And that private system is to be upgraded as part of this project. So we're actually seeing an infrastructure project that really serves the city being upgraded by a private developer in the form of the Housing Redevelopment Authority. So there is going to be an upgrade to the private or to the stormwater system that will be out there. The only rights that we maintain is if, in the event, for some reason, the Housing Authority were to not do the proper maintenance of the system, we would have the right to go out there and clean it or maintain it in an emergency or something to that effect. But again, there is an improvement to the system happening with this project, so hopefully other residents up gradient that are conveying drainage through the site won't see any disruption to the drainage in the street or anything of that sort, and will, if anything, see improvement.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. That's optimistic to hear. I'm looking forward to seeing the first storm come through where the back end of Major Drive doesn't flood.
All set. I think I had Alderman Kelly first, then
Thank you. I think this is a great project. I've, followed it along, and I'll be supporting this. But I did have a question around the agreement. So on page 4 of the agreement, they talk about how long it's in full force. And then A talks about cessation of the use as affordable. So am I understanding it correctly that on April 1st of 2041, they could potentially change these into non-affordable units?
So, in theory, yes. However, it is important to recognize that the Housing Authority and how it's funded and what its charge is and what its mission is, again, HUD funded, it would be very difficult to see a reality where these units are something other than affordable housing, even after the cessation of this agreement, for some reason. These units are frankly encumbered by other mechanisms far beyond term of this development agreement. So I guess I want to get out of answering your question by not promising you, but also saying several things that would be fairly unusual would have to happen for this not to be affordable housing past the term of 2041. But in theory, this development agreement would no longer be in place, but other encumbrances of financing and the Housing Authority's mission more generally will likely ensure that the project is affordable housing for a long time beyond that. Does that answer your question, Alderman
Yeah,
Kelly?
it does.
I didn't
just
mean to
wanted-
dodge, but
No,
hopefully
I wasn't, no. I knew that's how you were going to answer. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Because when we're creating affordables, obviously we want to keep them.
All
That's it.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on that, but then I have another question, if that's okay. If I remember correctly, when we talked in the planning board and so on, and we discussed this possibility of things not becoming affordable, the comment was that as long as they want to get any kind of HUD funding or anything else like that.
That's
and every time they re-up a contract, it adds more years, like 13 years or 10 years or something. So it almost perpetuates itself to be continued to be non-affordable. I mean, not, sorry, I'm saying affordable. Am I correct on that thinking there?
You are correct, and I'd also add that even the conditional award of the Housing Revolving Fund money to this project goes beyond the term of this development agreement, and that award requires that these units be affordable. So even our own other mechanism that may be in place, it requires it go beyond, but yes, HUD money, should HUD continue to exist in the way that we see it, and I think it will require this project be affordable for a long time.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I have, if I may. Thank you. I also remember at the planning board them talking about the multiple phases. At that time, I thought they were going to build like one portion of it and then another portion and so on. And at that time, they would be, I don't know why the word whack-a-mole is coming to my head. I don't mean it that way, but they would be moving people around. Once they got one unit done, they might move, rather than trying to move the people out into affordable housing, they might move them into that. Is that still kind of on the table? Or I just remember that conversation being happening.
Sure. I'm going to, again, defer to either Lynn or Rich just to make sure that I'm giving the most updated answer. I believe I understand the plan, but if perhaps one of you would be willing to comment on that, that would be helpful.
I'm happy to.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yes, we do intend on, for phase two, Alderman Clee, we do intend to move phase two residents into the new buildings as they're built.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there will not be, a more difficult relocation process that will occur.
Okay. So the people that were moved out at phase one, at what point will they come back into the homes? Will they be the last to come back in?
No, they'll actually be the first to come back in.
Oh, they will, okay.
They will,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Yeah, those are good questions about the people, but we've done this before, particularly at Bronstein Apartments. We went from something like 40 units to 400. So we're taking a big step here,
Not quite that many.
About 400.
216.
Oh, okay.
Close, though, close.
I apologize. I'm inflating them like Mr. President. But anyways,
It's the Irish in them.
But the thing is, yeah, I think this is outstanding. But I want to say something about the stormwater runoff. That I know. I was a temporary resident at Crown Hill because I worked at that fire station. So always familiar when we had some really neat thunderstorms that we would have backup in the storm systems. You couldn't do it today, but when they built the Crown Hill neighborhood, it was combination stormwater and sewer. And the wastewater plant couldn't take it all. So, caused some flooding in some areas, very limited, you know. But the thing is, I'm glad to see this. To me, that's the most exciting part about that, because any part that can relieve stormwater into the sewage treatment plant. Because guess what? Even though it is rainwater, we have to filter it and run it through the same process that they have to do the sewage. So it's going to be a savings indirectly to us all by don't have to reprocess rainwater. So I think that's outstanding. So look forward and wish we could do more. But I also will have to say the caveat, in looking at the Crown Hill neighbor to refit it and make it more modernized will be, you know, probably $1 billion, because you got to dig everything up. Not feasible, but working in piecemeal like this, I think we're heading in the right direction. So thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Any other questions? Alderman Wiltshire.
I don't really have questions, more comment. I've been involved with the Housing Authority for many, many years. They've been looking to do this development for the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I think. And it's finally coming to fruition. They did a great job at Bronstein, turning that into from 48 to 216 units.
I'll go with 400. Go ahead.
Well, we were like,
It would help.
and I'm really excited for this project coming up, because I think it offers so much to the residents that need this housing. The Housing Authority has really done a good job in this city. They do a good job. They're a player, they want to be a player, and they're getting it done. And they're getting all affordable. So kudos to them.
Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So anticipating opposition, not from me, but anticipating what people might question about this project, when I see the foregoing of impact fees and the foregoing of taxes, and I know that increasing the population, it's going to be a bigger strain on schools and other services, and so whatever this project doesn't pay, the other taxpayers in the city are going to have to pay to make up that difference. So can you? I'm assuming the answer is that, because of the nature of the project, the developer, would be unwilling to do the project without these concessions. Number one, and number two is is when you look at the greater good that will be achieved by doing this. We need housing. We need, and we keep running into situations where, the problem is identified as a lack of housing, and the solution is more housing, and this would really help to do that. So is that greater good? Does that justify the cost to the rest of the taxpayers? I mean, can you expand on that?
Yes, Director Sullivan.
Well, Alderman Jettie, I tongue-in-cheek, I think that's a question only you as a member of the Board of Aldermen can answer relative to whether the cost of, or the loss of revenue is greater than or equal to the benefit being provided by the project. But I would say for myself, unit creation, affordable unit creation at this volume and this number is not something that's easy to achieve in the current financing market for multifamily housing. And so every one of these projects that comes forward to us, I sit in my office and I think about the housing study that says we have to have 5,000 additional housing units by the year 2030, and that a significant portion of those need to be affordable. And for better or worse, projects of this nature are one of the easiest and only ways that we can get there. And so I'm not saying that we should forego every impact fee, every permit fee, every tax payment in order to get there. But the calculus that I do in my mind is based on the number of units that are proposed. Is this a reasonable ask of the city? And I'll tell you that when I said the negotiations were tough earlier, what I'm really referring to is actually the negotiation around payment in lieu of taxes and the fee waivers. City staff, and I'm going to give Attorney Leonard and Director Cummings really the substantial credit here, were quite adamant throughout the negotiations that we had to at least have a cost of service coverage at some level that would form the basis of the payment in lieu of taxes. So I think National Housing Redevelopment Authority, the developers, they would choose to pay $0 throughout the life of this project, and that's no comment on them. Of course, they'd love to make no tax payment. But ultimately, working with Director Cummings and Attorney Leonard, we came up with what we believe to be the most reasonable fundamental cost of services number, and that's the $100,000-ish number that you see included within the development agreement starting in 2030. So that's covering your basic police, fire, some school impacts. That's what that number represents. What we simply don't know is what level of school children is this development going to bring to the system. I'll say that one factor there is that we actually have declining enrollment, and so we actually need students to some effect to be in the school system because we built facilities that are intended for more students, and we're now seeing declining enrollment, which means higher fixed capital costs with lower enrollment. That's not a good thing. So we considered schools, but we weren't really overly concerned with that. But relative to the other impacts, this payment in lieu of taxes number in front of you is intended to reflect exactly what that sort of break-even point is. And you use the term, is the developer unwilling to pay more taxes? I would use the term, and I hate to say this, but I would argue the developer is unable to pay substantially more in taxes based on what we reviewed in the project. We could argue a little more here, a little more there. It could have gotten a little tighter. The developer fee could have been a little smaller here. They could be making less money. I'm glad I can't see Rich's face if his face is on Zoom right now, but we had those negotiations, and I truly feel that we got to a point where the project was either not going to happen or it was going to happen, but we would have to give a little bit on the payment in lieu of taxes. And ultimately, we reached an agreement, and that's the number that was in here. But again, it's a best guess. It represents what we think the fundamental cost of services is. We know affordable housing is critical, but we also don't want these projects to stop because we come in here asking for $0 in tax payment. We need to have some level of fair payment going to the city and the general taxpayer, and I think that's what this represents. So that's a very long answer to say, I think this deal is pretty darn tight, and while it's not the normal tax burden that a new multifamily development would take on, we very much think that the value add of affordable housing is greater than that tax delta between a normal market rate payment and an affordable payment here.
Okay. And could I ask an additional?
Follow-up?
So the other thing, thank you for your answer.
Sure, yeah.
The other thing that struck me was that these roads are going to be private roads. Why would the developer want to take the responsibility of those roads? I'm assuming that means maintaining them, plowing them, trash pickup, those kinds of services. Are they're going to take that up, and why would they do that?
Well, I can offer a few opinions on this. One, the city, we love when developments are private roads in many cases because the infrastructure maintenance, the burden of maintenance on an ongoing basis is taken away from us, particularly when it was a public road, now it's going to be private. So we obviously love that it will be private in nature. I think the Housing Authority recognizes that although municipal services are fantastic, and our teams do a great job plowing roads and taking care of them, I think the authority was willing to take these on as private streets, not just because that was sort of what the city was tipping towards, but also because this allows them to get out there more often to do snow removal, to salt the roads more often at their frequency, to provide better service directly to their residents, where maybe the city's services just couldn't keep up because of the number of other people that have to be served. And so I think in the end, it was a compromise between the city preferring private roads in a scenario like this where there isn't a clear need for this to be a public street, combined with the fact that I think the Housing Authority is recognizing it can provide better services in some cases where it's responsible. That's sort of why we landed with this configuration. And I think you'll see more of that potentially in other developments that come forward.
Okay.
All set, Alderman Jennings?
Yes, thank you very much.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm actually unsure of this. What is the current, how much tax revenue are we getting out of that area right now?
Alderman Clemmons, I hoped you wouldn't ask this question because I don't have the answer right now, but I can get it if you could just give me some time back at my computer. I do not know the current tax burden of this development right now, but I'd be happy to get an answer tonight.
Of the existing,
I simply just don't know it off the top of my head. Yeah, apologies.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All set? All right, first of all, I'd like to thank the Housing Authority and the city staff for working this out. It's, sounds like a very complex arrangement, but it's going to be the ultimate benefit of the city. Lately, I've had more questions regarding housing and affordable housing, and the need is great. And this project getting underway quickly and providing the number of units that we're talking about is going to take part of that burden away sooner rather than later. We have a lot of housing projects in the works, and I've explained to people that those don't happen overnight. And the negotiations with the city are ongoing, and we have to find ways to make it beneficial to both developers and the city to make these go forward and solve the housing problem, because it's a very important issue right now. And I think it falls on the city and the Board of Aldermen to ensure that we do whatever we can to alleviate this affordable housing issue. So, Alderwoman Kelly?
Just to your point around speed, so say this is approved tonight, approved by the board, when does the shovel hit the ground?
We don't know exactly. We know the development team is anxious to close, but I expect that construction will begin, I would say, demo 1st of November is what I'm hearing from Mr. Monahan. And the tax burden of the entire portfolio across the city, as I understand it, is between 600 and 650,000 for.
616 units, 250,000.
I'm sorry, 250,000 across the city right now. Low tax burden. That answers your question, Alderman Clemmons. But yes, very quickly be the answer.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, so, it's a little bit of a loss, right? But you have to look at, in my opinion, is you balance out what we're getting, right, that we wouldn't otherwise get.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is affordable housing. And I think there are plenty of people in need in this city, that the list of people who qualify but can't get that housing is long. So, I think this is one of those things where we give a little and we get a little. So,
Anyone else? Alderman Wiltshire?
I just want to comment on the lists. The public housing and Section 8 lists are both like 3,000 and 4,000 families waiting on those lists, so it's significant.
All right, there's nothing else. The motion on the floor is to recommend final approval of R 25-197. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Also before us this evening is R 25-198, establishing the use of fund balance for the tax rate. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R 25-198. Would the new chief financial officer of the city like to come up and explain?
Yes. Don Enright, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Nashua. I'm here to speak on Resolution R25-198, use of fund balance for the tax rate. This resolution proposes that $6 million be used against the tax rate. This amount will reduce the tax rate by 2.3%. The anticipated tax rate is approximately 6% this year. $6 million was used against the tax rate last year as well. Be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, so quick question is, does that 6%, is that before or after we apply this?
Good question.
Thank you for the question. That is after this $6 million is applied.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Sullivan?
First, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second of all, I understand every year I ask this, and every year I forget. So when you say 6 million towards the tax rate, essentially what happens is, the way I understand it, is that we're taking money out of this account and we're putting it towards what we would need to collect in property tax revenue, motor vehicle revenue, et cetera, and that just kind of puts it in parentheses that we don't have to collect 6 million more. That's basically how it is. We say we're applying it towards the tax rate, but essentially we're crediting the amount that we're going to collect anyway, correct?
The statement that you just made is correct.
Okay.
In simplistic form.
Yes,
That's
how I roll.
It's not a problem. Yes, it is
Okay.
correct.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Alderman Jettie?
So, thank you. So the analysis says that after we do this, the unassigned fund balance remains at or above the 5% minimum recommended by the Department of Revenue Administration and the 10% required by ordinance. So at or above, so exactly how much money is in the unassigned fund balance and how much money will be left? And what is the 5 and 10, what is I guess the 10%, doesn't matter what the 5% is, what is the 10%?
Thank you for that question. So after the $6 million is assigned, the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2025 is projected to be $41.1 million. This amount is 11.4% of the $361.1 million FY26 general fund appropriations. Per NRO 5-135, the minimum that is required is 10%.
Okay, so this would leave us, just a little more than 1% over what is required. So it's not I'm just thinking of people who are thinking, well, 6 million is nice, why don't you put 10 million towards the tax rate? But, number one, we can't, but number two, there isn't going to be a lot of excess beyond what is required by ordinance. Correct?
That is a factual statement.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and I have,
Follow-up, Alderman Jettie?
so when you said that this is going to lower the tax rate by 2.3%, so the tax rate now is what, $18 and something cents?
Have to forgive me, I am not recalling it off the top of my head, but yes, it is 18 something. It is going to decrease the amount that it's anticipated to increase by 2%. The increase is anticipated to be 6% more than what it is today.
Okay, and I see Alderman Clemmons reaching for his calculator. Are you figuring
You're
out?
going to look up the interest
Maybe.
rate.
I
With
feel like
that,
that's wrong, yeah.
Because that's my question. In dollars and cents, what does the percentage come to? And
16.85 would be the tax rate, I think.
that's the projected tax rate?
If it's going up 6% of, it's 15.9
15.9.
right now.
Correct.
So if it goes up 6%, it would be going up less than 1%, so it'd be 16.854.
And in the 16.85, guessing, because we can't control the county and
Correct.
the swept amount, but, so that will be reduced? Or is that the reduced amount?
With it. That's with the
reduction.
With the 6.
this applied.
Okay. So if we didn't do this, it would be much more.
Correct.
And you don't have those numbers in your,
I do not, but I'd be happy to get those numbers for you.
yeah, I would appreciate that. So when people ask, I can answer them. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly?
You may not have this question answered, but I'm just going to ask anyways, because I did pull up the tax rates to verify the 1590. There was discussion at the county level about putting out that rate up quite a bit. Where did we land with that? Is that going to change that number we just put out?
It increased significantly this year. We do not know what we can anticipate next year, but we can all hope that it doesn't have the same type of increase that it did last year.
So the 1590 plus 6% may not be accurate because we don't know.
Correct.
What the county rate will be, et cetera.
We're anticipating a level funding with the 6% increase that we have estimated at this point.
Okay, so that's a level fund. Okay, great.
Yes.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Follow-up?
Just to, acknowledge the conversation around why don't we do more? If we were to take the fund down to the 10% completely, is that a significant amount of money?
$5 million.
You may be talking, it's 2.5 to bring it down 1%, so it's not significant. You're probably talking 1 million.
Yeah, okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. To piggyback on that, the NRO says we have to be at 10% of the general fund appropriations.
Correct.
So that would be, according to my math, would be able to bring the general fund, the unassigned fund balance down to 36,107,286, which technically you could, according to my math, have an additional 5 million that you could, I'm just saying you could put another 5 million towards the tax rate in order to be in compliance with the law.
One thing that you want to take into consideration when you're thinking about how much you're going to put against it is you want to be looking forward in terms of what you're going to be able to supplement year over year, because if you do not look at that, you will create a hole for the next year. So as you stated, we could put more against it, but if we did, then we'd be setting ourselves up to be sure that we had the surplus for the years coming forward. And you just never want to set yourself up for a hole.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, but over the years, we've been cautioned by whoever was the chief financial officer for the last 14 years that I've been on the board, and I'm sure Alderman Clements can follow up, that if we take too much towards the tax rate, the following year, we'll drive the tax rate crazy. So, follow-up.
Thank you. So by putting us in a hole, just to kind of play this out, forecast it out. So if you were to say, at this point, if we were to apply the 5 million and take it down to the 36 million, at that point would be at the 10%. However, in the following fiscal year, let's just, for round numbers' sake, say we then bring the general fund budget up to 380 million through increases. Then would be 2 million in the hole for our unassigned fund balance that we would then have to then collect.
Correct.
So we'd have to make up for, so what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to explain the situation and how not, you know, we don't want to go all in. I understand what you're saying, but I just want to get the logic down in my own head, so.
Thank you. Yes, you
Yeah.
could potentially have to raise taxes to raise that unassigned fund balance.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R-25-198. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries.
Also before us this evening is R-25-205, relative to supplemental appropriation of $25,000 of unanticipated revenue into Fund 4515, Housing Revolving Fund. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the recommendation of final passage with a roll call vote.
Motion is to recommend to the full board final passage of R-25-205. Is there anyone that wants to elaborate on this? No city staff. Any questions? Seeing none, the roll, please call the roll.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Okay,
Okay, also before us this evening is R-25-206, relative to transfer of $75,000 from Department 194 contingency account 70100, general contingency, to the Department 129 city buildings, accounting classification 54, property services, relative to the Keith Auditorium. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
motion on the floor is to recommend the full board final passage of R-25-206. Nice. Oh, I thought you were coming up to speak.
Yeah, me too. Where you going?
I'm here to speak to it.
Okay, Alderman Clements.
Thank you. So, as we know, we have we've just filled the Keefe Auditorium Commission with some very good folks to kind of tease out what we want to do with that building. And I think, we also have 2 potentially good development opportunities at that site. But one of the things that we need to resolve is we need to know how much it's going to cost if we decide to move forward with renovating the Keefe Auditorium in some fashion. Because as it was discussed, the Keefe Auditorium does need a level of independence if we are going to move forward with either one of those development projects proposed for the site. And it also it has its own needs that, it needs its own heating system. It needs some other upgrades. So the thought was, Mayor and I got together along with the chairman of the commission, and, the mayor had discussed with me the idea of putting aside this funding and going out for an RFP to get an architectural firm to come in and do some design and give us a couple of different scenarios of what we could possibly do with the building. One of them being bare bones, what's the minimum we have to do to make sure that the building continues to stand and exist and can operate kind of the way it has been in the last few decades where, you know, the school and community programs use it and things like that. Then there is a middle plan, you know, upgrading it to a bigger point, maybe, and then, as was discussed in public comment, maybe doing, you know, a full renovation and that sort of thing. So the idea behind spending this money is to get 3 conceptual designs and then know what a very good cost estimate of those will be. That way, the Keefe Commission will work with the architects to come up with the details behind that. And then once that's done, this board will be able to decide, do we want to move forward with some level of one of those plans? Do we want to put those plans out to the voters? Do we want to, you know, what is it that we want to do? Do we want to abandon it altogether and say, well, you know, we put our best foot forward, but this isn't feasible based on what came back? But I think in order to get to that point, we have to have something concrete in front of us. So that's the idea behind spending this money. I think it's short money. It's less than $100,000. And it's going to get us the answers that we really need in order to make a decision about that building, which, you know, I don't need to tell anybody, holds a lot of history, and people, you know, love that place. And I think it deserves, at least for us to find out what the cost would be to try to keep it.
Okay. Alderman Bryan?
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to go on record and as stated that I totally support this. Unfortunately, you didn't mention option 4, and that is the bulldozer for the place.
Wow.
But the thing is, I am not going to recommend a bulldozer until we have a full 30,000-foot view of the project and what we can do with it, you know? And at that particular time, building projects, even the renovation of an existing building, will take a couple of years. Financial situations may get extremely more positive. It is my hope. You know what I mean? Presidential elections are only 4-year terms, you know what I mean? So, you know, maybe things could change economically in a few years, that we could really address this as something. It is an asset to the community. I myself, coming from Boston originally, I don't have the waxing nostalgic for the building like some of my, you know, constituents do. But I'm willing to give the full benefit of the doubt here. Let's look at it, and let's see what we could do with it, and if it's feasible. And then I would most certainly throw my whole weight behind this. But in dealing with the infrastructure committee, nothing starts unless you start looking at the RFPs. This is baby steps in any type of project to do in this city. And so therefore, getting money for this is a wise choice, in my opinion, to look at the future of what could be done with this structure. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll support this tonight. I think it's important, especially in a project this big, because what's funny is when you're setting a budget for anything, sometimes the person doesn't know what they want to spend, but they quickly find out what they don't want to spend.
Right.
And by that kind of reverse math, you actually get to a budget. But I would also want to say that whatever plans come out of this option, curtain 1, 2, or 3, whatever you look at it, and maybe this is getting off the topic of the resolution in front of us, but I certainly want to ask is, at that point, is the Keefe Commission looking at the city definitely taking this on, or are they looking at other options? To say, maybe we say, okay, maybe there's a nice nonprofit that wants to take this on and say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. Here you go. I mean, I just want to make sure that if we're putting all options on the table for redesign, I want to make sure we're putting all options on the table for the full functioning of this.
Can I
Yes, follow up,
respond?
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, I can respond to that. So, yes, so part of the issue that the committee, in their first meeting, kind of established was the fact that it would be practically impossible for them to come up with a capital campaign for that building without any design work or to know what they were fundraising towards, right? So, or to ask anybody to come in to even try to maintain that. So this is the starting point for all of the things that you mentioned. And whether that's, we go with the base level of, hey, you know what, we're just gonna get it where there's heating in there and the building can stay the way it is, and at a later date, the community can decide to add to it, or something in between, or all the way to the full hilt. But I think with any one of those plans, I think the committee can tailor their approach to what they need to do to get community involvement so that further defrays the cost to the taxpayer. So I think this is really the first step in all of that. And so, I think the committee has some really good people on it that know how to fundraise. They know all of the good and bad things about that building, and I think this is a good first start.
Just to follow up. So more of a comment. This is just a step in the decision tree, essentially. So this gets us to that, then we go there, and then we go there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certainly going to support this tonight. Alderman Clemmons, I think you've known that I've had your back in regard to the Keefe since we first began discussing the RFPs for the Elm Street site. I think this is a much more level-headed approach than what we had seen earlier this year, putting out a number that suffered the consequences of age, inflation, and didn't really speak to what the city's ideals were for the Keefe Auditorium, and taking that number and putting it out to the voters and hoping to get anything but a resounding no vote on that. This helps the commission that we've established, who are clearly rising to the occasion. They've got their work. We said early on that they've got their work cut out for them, and they're really rolling up the sleeves and doing the work, and I'm proud of each person on that committee. I'm really happy to see that happening. And so, like you said, Alderman Clemmons, I think this is a short amount of money to do what we can as a board to augment their work and really set the table for them so that they have something meaningful and tangible to work with. So I'm very happy to support this, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. Thank you.
Alderman Glee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on this committee, but I do want to put my 2 cents in. I think what this does too, as was pointed out, is as a decision maker, but it also helps in the future in deciding which one of the potential builders that we've heard from and so on in plans. And it helps them also understand what we're looking at. If we can give them a clear number, maybe they will want to work with us. Maybe they would want to do a partnership, whether it be nonprofit, whether it be capital campaign or something. So I think we have to get a good, healthy number, and this does move that forward. We talked to the developers who came up with a plan, and while there was kind of hesitation to some extent with one of the builders, another builder seemed to be more in tune with, well, let's see where it takes us. So we can't make a decision on anything until we know what we have. So thank you.
Anyone else? So as far as people having nostalgia in that building, my grandfather was the president of the Board of Education, was on the Joint Special Building Committee when they built Elm Street and the Keefe Auditorium. His name's on that big, huge plaque in the auditorium. So I do have I've also probably attended more events there than I could count over the years that I've been in Nashua. And also having evaluated that school from every brick to know whether we could build a middle school there and decided we could not. I know that building pretty well, as do some of the people that are on the commission. So I'm going to fully support this tonight because I understand what we're trying to do. If I have any concerns, it's because over the last 24 years, I've been dealing with architects. They don't come cheap. So I don't know what's expected out of that 75,000, but I will tell you that the estimate of 30 million to do the work is crazy. There are things on that list that don't make any sense, and I'm not going to get into them. But, so that's probably the limiting thing that we'll be able to find out, you know, what do they definitely have to do to make it usable? And they can do the other things over time. And, you know, then we can determine what assistance we might get from the developer of the entire plot and see where we're at. So I just hope we can do it for the amount of money, and I want to make sure the expectations of what you get for 75,000 are not full-scale designs on every one of those options, because every time an architect touches a piece of paper, it's expensive. So, but I will support it. Alderman Kelly? Alderwoman Kelly?
If I could ask a question through you to the gentleman who's here from Keefe. My question is, one of the pieces of this puzzle that is really important to me is around the arts organizations and if they will be open and willing to coming back. Because investing money into this, what I've heard from boards that I've sat on, others, is that it was really hard to use when it was a school auditorium. You couldn't get in, et cetera. And so no matter what happens with these architectural drawings, we need to make sure that there's a market for it. So it's really, I just want to know if that's been talked about, if there's a plan for how you'll go about that.
I can ask him to come up. He doesn't have to, but if you'd like to come up to the mic, please identify yourself.
Yes, Joseph Oluferovich again, Keefe Auditorium Commission, 35 Newbury Street. Thank you for that question. I think that's an important aspect to consider for the project in general. I think I'm going to dovetail from your question to your concern as well. This is a personal comment, not from the commission. One of the things that we have talked about is whether the viability to save the building is outweighed by the cost. And one of those things in this study that we hope to kind of see is what's there. One of the things that I mentioned to the mayor, this is a personal comment, this is not speaking for the commission. I asked the mayor how the city plans all of its projects. Why had it never considered the new library building to completely redevelop the entire Court Street site? And why don't you build a library together with a new giant performing arts center that does all of these things if the Keefe is not viable? So these are the kind of things, those kind of questions are in our brain. Because one of the things that the commission was concerned about is where are you to house? So the two main users of the Keefe in a giant community level are Symphony New Hampshire and the Actor Singers. The Performing Arts Center, as is on Main Street, cannot house their productions as they do them currently. We do not have an egress auditorium in the city that can house either of their productions as they do them at full scale. So this is one of these things where, yes, one of the things that are there is the possibilities of how is it run. One of the favored ways that we're talking about the Keefe being run in the future is similar to Concord, and how a nonprofit would run it as opposed to a corporation. That is one of the things, Alderwoman, that has become a bit of an issue. I don't want to get into the weeds on this too much, but that's one of the challenges with the current PAC, is that the public usage or the private nonprofit usage was not integrated very well into the Main Street facility in a way that's cost effective. So I think on this one, yes, the city will then need to weigh, do you want to spend this money to keep these organizations viable there? Would they be better served with something else in the city if you want to keep them in the city? This is a giant matrix. The first steps for this are really to, and I agree with you, Chairman Dowd, 75K for an architect is a drop in the bucket. I know this, but the new build that I worked on in the 90s with Renzo Piano was a $70 million theater in 1999. So when you can look at how big scales are to things like this. So yes, the commission itself The chair of the commission is vested in actor singers. I'm well-versed with symphonic, operatic, theatrical production myself, being on the commission. So yes, the nonprofit use of the space has to be a priority, because otherwise it does not serve the citizens of Nashua and the taxpayer contributions. It just serves a corporation. And that's not in our interest as well. But this is getting way ahead of the game of what we're actually doing tonight. And I am speaking, again, I'm not speaking for the Keefe Commission. This is my personal opinion as a member of the commission. And does that help a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, for the speaker, through you, if I could, you used the term, I think you called it an egress facility. Can you tell me what that means?
Well, an egress facility, if we lose the Keefe, if we have to lose the Keefe because it costs too much money, or one of the things that our physical plant manager that is on the board brought up, is the building viable to save? We haven't even talked about the bricks. We haven't talked about the structure. We haven't talked about the actual building without touching the building. What happens to the building structurally should you choose one developer over the other? One developer keeps the building intact. Another developer takes down most of the building. What happens to the support wall on that side of the Keefe should that developer be chosen, and how does that escalate the cost? So when I say egress, this is what I mean about the library facility, was one of just the ideas. Do you redevelop the Court Street site instead? It's how do you keep these organizations in the best home for them? Yes, is our beloved Keefe. And I'll speak to Alderman O'Brien. There's a big emotional attachment in the city to the auditorium because of the New Deal tradition from 1938 and it coming up and all of these things. Wouldn't it be amazing at the 100th anniversary years from now that there's this shining light preserved for the city for the future? The egress facility, we do not have one in the city that can house either actor singers or the symphony in their fullest, which is why, for instance, the symphony is playing out of city in several occasions. They are thrilled to be back in the Keefe for this season because the school is no longer kind of the leading light in scheduling. So that's the kind of thing. However, in the future, if the city spends this money, you're not going to just want to have the actor singers and the symphony in there, because that will not keep the lights on and keep the costs, flowing in the activity that are there. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but when I say egress facility, if we lose the Keefe, two of our major nonprofit arts organizations in the city may have to find other homes. Those homes may not be in Nashua unless we come up with what I call this egress facility. And again, I reiterate, I feel privileged to speak to the board this evening. I am not the only voice. So I'm just giving you what I see from my perspective. Others are going to have other things to bring to the table. But does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? So you have the people on that commission that can answer all the questions. You
Yes.
have one person that was a former vice president of Harvey. He'll know whether you can save that wall or not.
Right.
And you've got all elements of the use of that auditorium over the years on that commission, so you guys will be able to make good decisions.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Clemmons?
Well, I just want to make it clear. I mean, part of the deal with that, whoever develops that, even if they separate the building out, right, is that the Keefe has to remain a viable structure. So that whatever cost that's going to cost, that's on them. I should make that clear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's sort of what I was alluding to.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. There's no other questions. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
No.
No. Alderman Senate.
You're on mute.
Yeah,
Alderman
mute.
Senate?
You're on mute, Alderman Senate.
Still on mute.
I can read his lips. He said yes.
Yeah.
I did say yes. Thank
All
you,
right.
Alderman Jettie.
Very good, Alderman Center. I was going to have you stomp your foot if you couldn't get through. Okay.
One for yes, two for no.
Yeah. Alderman Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 yeas and 1 nay. Motion should carry.
Motion carries. New business ordinances.
There are none?
The tabled in committee is going to stay tabled as asked for by Director Photo. General discussion. Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want people to understand, looking at the Keith, I'm all in favor. It is definitely an asset, but not growing up in this community, like I say, I don't have, any attachment. I didn't go through the Nashua school system. I went through the parochial school system down in Massachusetts, and my high school is now I think it's a DoubleTree Hotel, and I'm trying to figure if I can go rent the room there that I used to spend in detention, you know what I mean? But, but the things is, things move on, and that was what I was focused on. If we could do it with the, tax dollars without too much of a burden to the taxpayers, that's the key thing. Right now, we only have 2 real tenants, Maybe if we can elicit more and get into it, and then keep in mind we have our investment into the current arts center. So it's a big plate for me to come look at it all and try to make the best decision. But while it's still standing, we got to look at all the avenues with it. We may come to a negative. I'm hoping we come to a positive conclusion for the building. So I just want to state that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Sullivan?
Just to respond to that, not directly, but I did want to say that because I voted yes on this does not mean that I endorse the Keefe Auditorium as a city-owned and operated building. I just want to be clear with that me, by saying yes, I want to find out, I want to fill in the blank. I want to see how much it's going to cost. And at that point, once we get to the crossroads to make another decision, we'll make the decision. But I need to know that before I can make that decision. So I just wanted to be clear that that was not an endorsement that the city should buy, own, operate the Keefe Auditorium.
I think we pretty much all feel that way.
Okay, I don't want to speak for anybody.
Alderman Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to address my vote. I think that I am supportive of the study. I am supportive of the arts. I just feel like in this moment, we talked about a 6% tax rate. We have $150,000 that we're going to have to put into bathrooms for downtown. And I just, from a fiscal standpoint, just felt like the wrong timing. So that's why.
All right. With the clerk, let's see. You already voted on that, so it's public comment. No one? All right. Remarks by Alderman? Seeing none? Alderman O'Brien, your favorite motion.
Yes, it is. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion to adjourn by roll call.
All right. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Oh, yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Thank you, everyone.